Hello and welcome back to Raid Madness for the Sacred 16. This is the third round, and this is MTGJedi, our guest analyst today. Tell me, MTG, have you caught Raid Madness? How are you feeling?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely in it. I've been super pumped since we've been scheduling this and trying to talk about all these matchups and stuff. This is literally the best to me. Combining sort of basketball and Raid together, which are two of my loves. Yeah, I'm excited because the official basketball brackets just dropped yesterday, and now we get to talk about the Raid brackets. Oh yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, bracket madness everywhere. It is a really fun time. Especially if you do this every year. You know, if you are a basketball fan, you do this every year. This is something to get up for. So I'm excited to talk about this round with you because I think we were just talking beforehand, and it's like, this is the round where things really start to tighten up and get really interesting. So we are going to take a look back at the second round results, and then we're going to talk about the third round matchups. And let's start right away in the Northwest. We're going to start with the Ice Golem's Peak. And at first glance here, it has played out exactly as the seeding goes. We've got the 1 versus the 4 seed in the top. We've got the 3 versus the 2 seed in the bottom. But the path here has been kind of interesting. So I actually want to ask you your opinion. Looking back at the previous matchup, we have Godseeker and Neri versus Tayrell. And this was the biggest beatdown that the bracket has seen. 97.7% for Godseeker and Neri. Would you have predicted such a massive beatdown of a very popular Tayrell?
No, definitely not. And I would suspect that there are more newer players filling out these brackets, because I think it would have been a lot closer if we had, you know, people who had been around since when Tayrell was, oh my goodness, he was one of the best champions in the whole entire game. So I wonder if that's the cause, but I think obviously Godseeker's amazing. I think the end result would have been the same either way, but yeah, absolutely shocking with the percentages there.
Yeah, and if you look back towards the first round even, you know, Godseeker beat Umbral Enchantress. She only had 96.4% of the vote there, and Tayrell actually won his vote with almost 91%.
Yeah.
And, you know, so you think it's, oh, that's a fairly close matchup, and then it comes in and it's a worse beatdown for Tayrell than it was for Umbral Enchantress. I was kind of shocked. I have to admit, again, like you, I thought she was going to make it, but I didn't expect this result, I don't think.
Right. And I think if Tayrell had been in a different position, he would have had a much better chance. Like, that's a very tough bracket, part of the bracket to come out of.
Absolutely. Now, in the other quarter of this bracket, we have Anax being knocked off by Allure. 92.2% for Allure. Another strong showing. In the first round, she got past Vala. Vala probably wasn't even really belonging in the bracket. But Anax does belong here, and yet she still comfortably won, setting up a matchup between her and Godseeker Neri. Let's start with the round 2 matchup. How do you feel about this beatdown of Anax? A pretty good damage dealer there.
Yeah, he definitely is. I think his restrictions kind of hold him back a little bit with him getting that random extra turn occasionally. And also Allure being so good where she's good. Like, she's the best where she's good. And she's usable in a lot of different areas, as my free-to-play can attest to. Like, even the potion keeps, you can control their turn meter. A lot of people don't know that, but she can be used in a lot of different areas. Whereas I feel like Anax is really only a clan boss champion.
Fair enough. I do think, you know, any clan boss damage dealer can be used against some other bosses in the game somewhere, right? So,
yeah.
But he's definitely considered a specialist. In a weird way, she is a specialist who is extremely versatile. Like, she does one job, so she's a specialist.
Right.
But she can do that job in 20 different places, so she's very versatile.
Yeah.
Coming up now against Godseeker and Neri, it's almost like on like, because Godseeker, you could also describe her that way, right? She does sort of a very specific job. And you think there are certain places where she shines, like Sand Devil's Necropolis. Obviously, she's a great champion to have for that. But what do you think here? You know, which one is going to provide more utility? Which way do you think the voters are going to lean?
Well, I am a firm believer that Sand Devil is the thing that people need on their account the most, especially in 2024. However, to go alongside that, I think this is really close. Like, I really want to know. Let us know in the comments here. Where do you use your Godseeker outside of Sand Devil? Like, if all you use Godseeker for is Sand Devil, that's great and all. But is there another location where you use her? I feel like she used to get used in other locations, but I haven't heard of players actually using her anywhere else other than Sand Devil in a while. Whereas Allure still gets used in progression in Fire Knight, as well as a number of other bosses and locations. I think this could be a lot closer than at first glance.
Yeah, I think you're right. That Sand Devil's Necropolis is, first of all, it's newer. And second of all, it's extremely important as you approach endgame. It's just a way to get extra, almost, you consider it like free power, right? It's like additional just free power. And Godseeker is so good for that. But like, I think about Dark Fae. Dark Fae is still incredibly good to farm, and Allure is one of those champions that makes that boss so much easier. And then again, like you said, progression Fire Knight. So I think all around Allure feels like she has more value in more places, but I wonder if that one place where Godseeker is clearly top of the heap is going to be enough to put her over the top.
I think Godseeker ekes it out. I'm going to say 55-45 though. You know, not like 97. I'm saying like this has got to be a closer percentage, I think.
We have another very popular champion down here in the second quarter, which is Deacon Armstrong. He's going up against Farrakhan the Fat in this round. But let's take a look at the paths on how they got here. Deacon walked through a powerful Skull Crown, a really good champion, another popular champion, very easily, 93% of the vote to 7%. Are you a little bit shocked that Skull Crown couldn't pull more than 7%?
At this stage of the game, no. If we had made this vote when Deacon first came out, it would have been a lot closer. But being that there are a lot more options now for damage dealers, I think that this is clearly in favor of Deacon, and I think this is the right result, basically.
I agree. I mean, I think Deacon is super popular. I think he's also super versatile. And like you said, damage dealers are kind of a dime a dozen. You can always find a good one if you need one, but finding a great support that goes everywhere is a bit harder. And if we look down at the next matchup, which is Skrank versus Farrakhan the Fat, here we have another champion who provides maybe a rare skill, Farrakhan the Fat, with that ally attack. There aren't a lot of epics that do it. He does it the best of all of them. But we had another champion, Skrank, who's also really good. He's the best AoE HP burner in the epic rarity as well. Here, are we just seeing the popularity of a champion in Farrakhan the Fat, or are we seeing the value of ally attack over HP burn?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked it like that, because I think that one of the best abilities in the entire game right now is ally attack. So I do think that that's the reason. I do got to give a shout out to my dude Magnar. I think he got robbed in that round. I think he absolutely deserved to beat Skrank out, and I'm surprised to see Skrank in that losing spot to Farrakhan, because I think if Magnar had been the winner there, you would have seen a lot closer vote. And people, Magnar is the number one epic damage dealer in the game. So please don't undervalue your Magnar. He was stolen. He was gypped. But in terms of coming in here, I think he definitely deserved to beat Skrank Farrakhan. Once Skrank was in that position, that ally attack, it's so important on your account. And not even just one, like you can build multiple ally attack champions and for different purposes, different areas, and still be really happy with that. But what do you think about the Deacon, though? Deacon Farrakhan. I know you've said a lot of kind words about Deacon. He's one of your favorite champions in the game?
He is, yeah, definitely one of my favorite champions. Probably one of my favorite epics, absolutely.
Okay.
I do like Farrakhan the Fat. I built him early on. I got him relatively early on. He was like in my first 10 epics, and he's great. Usable in Clan Boss, usable in a lot of places, and now he's got an additional value with hard mode Fire Knight, right? He's one of those most accessible ally attack champions that can help you there. So I think his value's actually risen over time. Is it enough, in your estimation, to make him a tough fight for Deacon? Or do you think this is not really going to be that close?
Oh, no, I think Farrakhan's going to win.
Oh, okay.
I think it's not only going to be close, I would predict Farrakhan to be the winner here. I think that Deacon has an amazing kit, don't get me wrong. He allows you to do things on arena teams that are unprecedented with any other champion. And even with that being said, even with how strong Deacon is in the game, I think Farrakhan should, not only could, but should be the winner here. Because you can use him in so many areas of the game, not just any specific one area. I think that in 2024, people's push should be to get ally attack into their Hydra teams, and he is one of the best ally attack champions. You know, he has a great kit, and I think, you know, bursting into Hard Fire Knight, working him into your Hydra teams, I think he's an excellent option that provides more value than even what Deacon can bring you.
That's a bold statement. I'm not sure I agree with you. I'm on the Deacon train here. I would be going the other way. I think that Farrakhan at a 2 seed was really interesting to me. I do think he's very strong. Like you said, he can be used in a lot of areas. And ally attack is such a cool skill. You can really find cool combos with other champions who have interesting A1s for almost any content. You know, so even if his kit outside of the ally attack isn't perfect for a fight, which it usually is, just those opportunities to get more A1s out there can be really interesting. You can use an A1 slow, an A1 decreased defense, an A1, you know, stun, even if you have people in stun sets. You could use them in a blender comp in arena. So yeah, incredibly good skill. And like you said, you know, one of the best to do it. It's definitely the best epic to do it. And so yeah, this could be a very close fight. I think we both expect a close fight. I think Deacon is going to edge him. I think he's a little bit more popular, a little bit more versatile. And obviously, because he's a starter code, more people are going to have him. Okay, so we've got our final 4 in this region. And so going forward into the Epic 8, which is the regional final, what's your call? Who's getting to the regional final, and then who's going to make it to the final 4?
I think Godseeker's going to make it past Allure, but I would expect that to be very close. And I'm picking Farrakhan down there to beat Deacon. I know we're opposing views on that, but that's what makes these things so much fun. And my pick is Farrakhan coming out ahead of Godseeker. And I think that's going to be, maybe that's speaking from my heart, but I think that he is going to help you in more areas than Godseeker. And we'll see what other people think, but I'm picking Farrakhan to come out of here.
I would say that would be a shock to me, not because Farrakhan isn't deserving of a Final 4 potential berth, but just because there are so many popular champions he has to beat along the way. So it would be definitely revealing about the voting public, I think, if Farrakhan makes it through. So I appreciate the call. I like the call, and we'll have to see what happens. All right, let's head down to the second region, Southwest. We're in the Spider's Den. Now, we've got the 1 seed here, Demitha, just walking right through. She did surprisingly well against Ugo. I think Ugo was a potential dark horse in this half of the bracket here coming out. She absolutely stomped Fane, which I actually went the other way. I thought Fane was potentially the better snowball champion and might do better here. But Ugo beat a pretty good champion in that first round at 91.5%, and then pulled down a respectable 37% against Demitha here. But still, that seems like a fairly comfortable win for Demitha. What does that tell us about the popularity of Demitha moving forward?
I think it actually should have been a little bit closer. One of the toughest things about breaking into Hydra, especially for the first time, is having a champion with that block buff skill. Now we have 2 reliable champions with block buffs at the AoE level, and she's the better of the 2. Like, she's the best. She's one of the best block buffs champions in the game. And with the, how important that game mode is, I think that she's really essential for any account. Like, if you have one, you're going to build it. So I think Demitha was the right answer to that pairing. but I do like that it was reasonably close.
Yeah, Ugo, actually, performed pretty well here in the second round to get 37%. But if we drop down to the next pairing, this is actually probably the most interesting and the closest fight in this second round. Taragi the Frog pulls down 45% to Madame Ceres's 55%. Now, Jay Giggs, one of our other analysts, has called Madame Ceres to go all the way to the finals. He is riding that train. He thinks that she is one of the best epics in the entire game. And we were previewing this matchup and thinking Taragi could pull an upset here. He is also very valuable, very strong. And now he is also a new player promo code. So you can actually get him through a promo code. But maybe he hasn't been a promo code long enough to get over on Ceres here. What do you think about the results here? 45% to 55%.
I'm going to agree with Jay Giggs here because with that sheep blessing, Madame Ceres has taken a huge back seat in the game, but she has been historically so good, like better than any other legendary, in this same type of category. Like there's no legendary that has this type of kit better than her. What she does the best in the game. And I think that's coming through in the vote here. Whereas Taragi, he's very good at what he does, but I think a lot of accounts outgrow him. Where, you start out using him in your clan boss team, he's essential to you beating the faction in Faction Wars, but then eventually he kind of moves to the sidelines and makes room for other people. Whereas historically, Madame Ceres has been like crucial throughout the course of your account. But because of the sheep, I'm actually kind of surprised she won this round.
So yeah, I think this went down the way I expected. I think Taragi the Frog, as good as he is, he's easier to find a replacement for than Madame Ceres. Basically, there's so few champions who do what she does, and she does it so well. So I think maybe just the rarity of her kit is powering her through here in this round. That leads us to a really interesting matchup here. Two Void Epics, two very good champions doing maybe the best of the job that they do. Demitha up against Madame Ceres. I almost don't know what to expect here. What are you thinking?
Well, I do think it's kind of funny. Like, if you put them head to head, Ceres is going to win because Demitha puts up the buffs and then Ceres removes them.
Right.
But in terms of the actual vote, I think Demitha's going to win here. I do. I love the fact that she's the only unkillable champion that you need. She puts up block buffs. You get the rest of your team to either reset her skills or speed you up so that she can continue to do that. The other champions like that, you typically need a lot more to go alongside them. And so therefore Demitha ends up being critical to the success of people's accounts. Whereas certainly Madame Ceres is good. Removing all the buffs, decreased defense, decreased attack, all of which is great. But you could replace her with Tyrell or Deacon, as we've talked about, and just use a different type of decreased defense champion. Whereas Demitha, that's a harder champion to replace. So I think she's still going to come out ahead on this one.
It's really interesting that you phrase it that way, because I've gotten comments and other people have talked about how Demitha requires a lot to get her to that unkillable state. So you need a Seeker, you need an Heiress or a Deacon or a High Katoon, and you typically need at least two champions to get her speed tuned and going so she can become, the one block damage champion. But you're right. There aren't too many unkillable champions where you only need one unkillable, right? Like she does that job by herself in a comp. And she's really the only one that allows you to go at a 3-to-1 speed tune, enabling that one key ultra nightmare outcome. Most of the other situations, you're going to be looking at 2 keys, unless you can get some additional champions in there somehow, some additional unkillables in there somehow. So yeah, it maybe requires some champions to activate, but still does the job on her own. It's a weird kind of mix there. As for Madame Ceres, you're right. She's not essential. You can get around her. You can work around her and work those roles in. I think it just comes down to whether people value getting that clan boss speed tune going. Some people are intimidated by the speed tuning. Some people don't like the speed tuning. You know,
True.
are people really interested in that speed tune, or do people just want a, like, you know, drop and play arena champion who can strip those buffs, can be used in wave content? So I don't know. Maybe, you know, clan boss champion versus arena champion. We'll have to see. All right, moving down into the second half of the bracket now, we've got Stag Knight, who took on a Kempton. A Kempton, I think, showed up. I think that's a respectable outcome for a Kempton at 21.7% of the vote. Stag Knight's incredibly popular, and he's a very good champion, and he's got name recognition. He literally had everything going for him in this fight. Maybe the only weakness you could see is that he wasn't a Void Epic, and a Kempton is. But I think this is a pretty respectable showing by a Kempton. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for a newer champion as well. I think he's definitely gotten some press from Hard Spider, and he's definitely growing in popularity as well. But Stag Knight, so good. You know, not surprising there. Not
surprising. And unfortunately for me, in the bottom half of this quarter here, Genbo went down to Rector Drath, 29.5%. Again, very respectable. We're not really seeing arena nukers go through here. We're not really seeing a ton of damage dealers get through to the Sacred 16. And Rector Drath is so versatile and so usable in so many places that this was a long shot for Genbo. But again, I think a respectable nearly 30% here. Do you think this was the right call? And do you think the percentages fit the matchup?
I really actually thought Genbo was going to come out of here. I did not anticipate Rector being as popular of a pick here. I did not expect that. I thought with how accessible Genbo has been throughout the course of his time in the game, a lot more people were going to pick him. So that one was maybe one of the biggest surprises of the bracket for me so far.
I voted for Genbo myself. He's one of my favorite champions, and I do feel like when you pull him, he is just the answer to a question. That's it. He's the perfect answer to a question, whereas Rector Drath can be replaced by other champions. You don't need one. Not that you necessarily need a Genbo, but she is also a pretty good answer to a lot of questions. So if we looked at this from a viewpoint of analyzing the voter, because we're starting to see trends emerge in the third round here, in the third round matchups, do you feel that because of how accessible Genbo has been in the past and how popular he has been in the past, that maybe this indicates that the voters are, like, a larger percentage of voters are newer players, and maybe that Void Epic is just harder to get, and so fewer people have access to this champion?
Yeah, that definitely could be true. But I don't know. I just don't see a lot of people building or advocating. Yeah, I got Rector Drath today. Yes, let's go. I don't see that. Also, I have never really been that big of a fan of her, so maybe it's just because of that. But yeah, I think it could be. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's probably a good call.
Yeah, it is. It's a matchup that, you know, it's like, it really shows what you value, you know, like versatility versus how good a specialist can be. And yet in other places, maybe we're seeing the specialists who are a little, I don't know, more famous maybe, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Because when I see champions like Demytha go through, and Godseeker and Aniri go through, and Allure go through, and I'm like, they all do one job really well. Genbo fits that mold, except they're all supports and he's a damage dealer. We've got Stag Knight versus Rector Drath in the next round. I assume that because you thought Genbo was going to win the last round, you think Stag Knight should win this one pretty handily.
I do think he should win this round. I think Stag Knight is ridiculously good. I mean, time and time again, in so many areas of the game, you can definitely use him. But with how well Rector beat Genbo here, I'm wondering if she's going to still make it through this bracket. I would have picked Stag Knight for sure coming out of here, but seeing the results from the previous round, I'm thinking Rector has a better shot than what I was giving it credit.
Well, if you look at the previous round and you think about it this way, Stag Knight versus a Kempton is to a certain extent a support against the damage dealer. Rector Drath versus Genbo, support against the damage dealer. Both supports went through, but Stag Knight actually won his round more handily. So potentially that does kind of show the strength of Stag Knight. I mean, both of the damage dealers are also pretty good at what they do, and they're both void affinity. So, you know, the matchups were very similar, and yet Stag Knight won by a better margin. So I actually feel like Stag Knight probably has the edge here, despite what you're saying, you know, Rector Drath being a little bit of a surprise and the 2 seed. I really feel like these seeds are reversed. I think maybe Rector should have been the 3 and Stag Knight should have been the 2, and that's how we're going to see it work out.
Yeah, it definitely could have been that way for sure, but I'm hoping for Stag Knight. You know, I love that champion. So if you end up being right, then that works for me too. But I think it'll be close.
All right, so now looking ahead into the Epic 8, we've got our 4 in the Sacred 16. Who do you think is coming through? Who's going to be fighting in the regional finals?
So I'm gonna pick Stag Knight. I want him to win. I think that he's coming through there. I've already said I think Demyth is coming through in the other side. And so now you want to know who I think will come through in that matchup?
Sure, give it to me. Demytha versus Stag Knight, who's going through?
I had Demytha in the finals, and I think I'm going to stick to that. I think she's too essential to too many players' accounts. I think she will make it through. It might be a little bit of a rough road. It might be some buzzer beaters, but I think that she will come through and make it in there.
So going with your head and not your heart on this one. It sounds like you're a Stag Knight fan. I am too. So we'll have to see, first of all, if they both get there, and then how that one will shake up as well. Let's move over to the Northeast bracket. We're going to the Dragon's Lair. Now, the Dragon's Lair is the first bracket that really got broken. The seeds here on the west side, we had 1, 2, 3, and 4 make it through in both halves of the West. But here we are in the Northeast, and the 1 seed got knocked out in the first round. We've got the 5 seed out. We got the 8 seed out. We've got all the upsets coming through in the top half of the Northeast bracket. So that just sets up a situation here where Royal Guard went up against Phoenix. Phoenix knocked off Runekeeper Dazdirk, and Royal Guard walked through Phoenix. That's a whole surprise to me. What do you think about just this top path here? Is Royal Guard this good? Is he this popular? Or is he just coming up against weak competition?
Yeah, no, he's definitely this good and definitely this popular. And if you don't have one built on your account, you definitely should. Also, I'm very happy to tell you that I predicted that on my bracket.
Wow.
I had Royal Guard coming out there exactly like this. And I believe I said in our first collab, I thought Phoenix was going to come out ahead of Runekeeper. So this has been fascinating and super interesting. I love this part of the bracket. To me, this is what this is all about. As far as the other side of the bracket with Mistrider Dythy, I think that's right, but honestly, I'm shocked that he beat Duck the Pierced.
Yeah.
Were you more shocked about Royal Guard or Mistrider Dythy though?
I was more shocked about Runekeeper losing in the first round. I know you did call that, in fact, and I was surprised. I actually had him coming through to the Sacred 16. I thought he would be here over Royal Guard. I am shocked at Mistrider. I didn't think he would get out of the first round. I think White Dryad Nio is the better champion of that matchup. I think Duke is the better champion in this matchup. And I've started to realize a couple of things about Mistrider. He's fun. He's just really fun. And sometimes fun champions are just more appealing, even if they're not necessarily better or more versatile or, you know, more powerful. He's just fun. And so I think that's what is propelling him to this point. Now the question becomes, is he so much fun that he even beats out Royal Guard? Because that would be an absolute shocker to me. What do you think about this matchup?
I don't think so. Royal Guard can pump out such big numbers, and a lot of times that's what people like, especially in games like this. You know, if you put him in against Spider 20 with the right debuffs, he can take half the health of the Spider. And same thing goes for Hard Spider now. We're using him again in Hard Spider because he can not only take a chunk out of the Spider, but also kill the Spiderlings. So I think Royal Guard's going to come through here. OG Royal Guard beating the new guy, Mistrider Dythy. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen here.
I would say that I would agree with you, except I have no idea how Miss Rider got here in the first place. And so I may be completely misjudging the way this champion is viewed by the rest of the player base. But let's go ahead and drop into the bottom half of the bracket here. We've got Maneater going through Miscreated Monster. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but the percentage was surprising to me at 86.8% for Maneater. Remember, Maneater wasn't voted into the bracket. We had to elevate him to get him to this 3 seed. And I think he's actually living up to this 3 seed pretty well. Were you surprised by the beatdown he gave a very good Miscreated Monster?
No, I think at this point in the game, Miscreated Monster could almost be classified as underrated. As crazy as that seems to me. I am surprised that the matchup wasn't closer, though. You're absolutely right there. I thought it was going to be maybe 60-40 even. You know, I thought it was going to be reasonably closer. I think the result is right. I think Maneater should beat out Miscreated Monster if I had to pick, but I definitely thought it was going to be closer.
Now, speaking of close matchups, the closest matchup of the round is the next one that we're talking about, which is Ursula the Mourner up against Dark Kael. I had some people calling for Dark Kael as a dark horse out of this region and going to the Final Four. I didn't think that was going to happen, but this was a very close battle. Do you think that this is a reasonable outcome here? Do you think Ursula should have gone through, or were you on the Dark Kael bandwagon?
Oh, I'm definitely on the Dark Kael bandwagon, but I didn't actually think he was going to win. Ursula is too popular and, you know, too useful to a lot of people. And being that Dark Kael is hidden behind Doom Tower, I figured Ursula was going to come out ahead here. With that being said, I think that's so interesting that was as close as it was. That's very interesting. And it makes you wonder about her validity going into the next round as well. Being that it was so close against that 7 seed Dark Kael, what's she going to do against a 3 seed Maneater, being that he is such a profound clan boss champion?
Yeah, and I've had a lot of debates about Maneater in the last week. People talking about him. Some people are really pigeonholing him as a clan boss, unkillable champ. You need a second champion to activate him. Like, you either need another copy of him or you need another champion to pair him with. And I keep defending Maneater because he was like the 4th or 5th epic I built on my account. And I'm here to tell you, he's good everywhere. He is great everywhere. He's got a 100% AoE drop defense on his A1. I think it has to be critical. And then he's got 100% turn meter steal, which is crazy. It's bonkers. I think when you're looking at his 5-turn cooldown on his block debuffs, you think, oh, well, that's not really a great cooldown. But you have to remember, in other PvE content, it's not really a 5-turn cooldown because he's got that 100% turn meter steal.
Yeah.
So it's a 4.5 or a 4, you know, and that is pretty typical, actually, a 2-turn block debuffs on a 4-turn cooldown. And he hits hard and he's void affinity. So incredibly versatile. I think if he gets pigeonholed as that, you know, you need 2 copies of him in Clan Boss, Ursula could go through because she's just good with everybody. You can pair her with any team. But I think if people think about the kit of Maneater and how versatile he can be, I think he probably goes through on the value of versatility plus the Clan Boss power.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you here, and you took a lot of the thoughts right out of my mind. I love Maneater for all of those reasons, and you can not, in addition to all of those amazing reasons you've stated, you can also throw him in your arena teams and be quite annoying with that. You know, you go your speed booster into unkillable, and all of a sudden now what are they going to do? Like, you need somebody specific to remove those, and obviously you're not going to put your team up against that. So I love Maneater here, and I think he's going to pull off this upset. I think he's going to bring it home and beat Ursula the Mourner, and I think the Dark Kael versus Ursula fight is more evidence that that's likely to happen.
I think it's likely that Ursula is a weak 2 seed. I do believe she's a very good champion, but she could be a 2 week seed, whereas Maneater is a fairly strong 3 seed. So I don't even see this as an upset if Maneater goes through. I think it's just 2 good champions battling it out, and we'll have to see, you know, how the voting public goes. That's basically what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
But for my money, as much as I love Ursula, I don't think I could deny that Maneater's probably the favorite here. All right, dropping down into the southeast region, we're at the Fire Knight's Castle. And this is another interesting region. This is a region that's gotten a little bit of shakeup. So the West is going to plan and the East is all broken up and crazy. Obviously, the wild card in this quarter of the bracket is Seeker, right? Seeker coming in at a 13 seed is a ridiculous seed for this guy. He is way too strong to be a 13 seed. But another champion that, for whatever reason, the in-game review system didn't put into the top 64. So surprisingly, Doom Priest got past Ruella relatively easily. I thought that would be a little bit of a closer battle. Seeker did a similar job against Vogoth. Are you surprised by either one of these second round results?
I kind of am. I think Ruella is like a very crucial champion depending on who else is on your account. And for her to lose so handily to Doom Priest, but then on the opposite side, for Vogoth to lose so handily to Seeker, those two champions, those fit the same type of category to me, where their strength is their passive. You don't need books for them to be good. You can build them in a lot of different ways. If Doom Priest beat Ruella like that, I'm surprised the Vogoth Seeker matchup wasn't close, if not Vogoth coming out ahead.
So do you think that foretells a Seeker beatdown of Doom Priest then?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think Seeker's gonna beat Doom Priest here. Yeah, I do think that. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And I do think, you know, when you have really good champions who are well regarded, who are almost like instant 6 stars, like Ruella and Vogoth, everybody wants those champions on their account somewhere. You get late game enough, maybe it's not as critical. But as far as like solution champions go, Ruella and Vogoth are both highly desirable champions. Now, Seeker and Doom Priest, likewise, highly desirable champions. I was saying how I often don't feel like an account is complete until I have a copy of Allure. I feel the exact same way about Doom Priest and the exact same way about Seeker. Those are 3 champions who I would say I always want these 3 epics on every account that I run. So now we've got these 2 essential champions coming up against each other. You're going with Seeker. I am too. I think he makes it through.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to be on the opposite side.
He was my very first epic I ever built, and he stayed in my main roster for at least a year. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. And even at endgame, you can still use him in Hydra. You can still use him against Dark Fae. You can still use him in Arena. You can still use him in your unkillable clan boss team. He never goes away. He never goes away. And I think Doom Priest, as good as she is, she's met her match here. All right, let's drop down into the bottom half of this region. Now, this went according to plan. I think the top half was really interesting, but here we've got Venomage up against Geomancer. Venomage comes through Gorgorab pretty handily. Geomancer had a tougher fight in Seer, despite the fact that Seer was the 10 seed. I think we all think that Seer shouldn't have been a 10 seed. So let's actually look at that fight specifically. Some people were calling for Seer to create the upset here. What do you think? Did this shake out the way it was supposed to? And are you surprised at the numbers?
I thought that this was going to be the closest fight in the entire bracket, even closer than the finals, was this pick here, Seer and Geomancer. I thought this was going to be a, 50 point versus 50 point, very small margin of victory, because for a lot of people, Seer as a wave clearer is the best thing you can do on your account. And for other people, the amount of power that Geomancer brings in specific areas is second to none as well. So I am absolutely shocked that Seer only got 30% of the vote here. I did pick Geomancer to go ahead of Seer in this round, but I'm still shocked that it was not closer than this.
Yeah, I have kind of a funny story with this. In my bracket, I predicted Geo, and then when it came time to vote, I voted for Seer. I couldn't quite make up my mind. I think I knew that Geo would be voted through, but I think ultimately, in my personal experience, Seer has provided me with a ton of value, and I don't have a Geo on my account, and I had to go with the champion that I knew was awesome. It's like I had to do that, and I did that on a live stream, and I think people were screaming at me in the chat. But Yeah, it's a tough call. It's a tough call. And I'm a little bit surprised at the 7-3 ratio here.
Yeah, really surprised.
So now moving forward, this is an interesting matchup to me. I've been calling this a matchup of similar champions. They're really versatile champions that provide a lot of solutions to a lot of hard content. They're valuable early on. They're valuable in the mid game. They're valuable at end game. Not the same champion, but definitely really interesting in terms of a matchup. Tell me your impressions, just before we get to Geo, just tell me your impressions of Venomage. How good is this champion and where do you use her?
So Venomage is definitely a very good champion. I am pretty surprised that she so handily beat Gorgrab, though. I thought we could see an upset there because of how good he is, being that Reviver and the turn meter boost in one kit. But after we see that Venomage beat him so handily, I think that it's pretty obvious that people love this champion, and rightly so. I think the biggest thing of Venomage's popularity surge has got to be Amius in the Cursed City. We've seen her be used there quite a bit, at least in the first rotation, and any rotation that it's going to be an option. That ability to do the heal reduction as well as other things that are relevant.
Yeah, and one interesting thing that does, in fact, not only speak to what you were just talking about, but the similarities and the reasons why I view these champions as sort of similar solutions in the game is Venomage has that heal reduction, and that heal reduction also grants you 15% damage reduction. So she has a 15% damage mitigation off the top. Now, Geomancer also has, from his deflect, he has a mitigation off the top. So they are not only good champions in themselves, but they make their teams stronger. So I'm glad we got to speak to Venomage, but now let's talk about the matchup here. We all know how popular and powerful Geo is. Do you think Venomage has enough in her kit and enough going for her, maybe with the Amius, solution being a boost to her popularity, to make this a close fight, or do you think Geo is just the overwhelming favorite?
No, I think Geo's the overwhelming favorite. And, part of that is just the way the Polarium's designed the game. In the last year or two, they've pushed away from poison being one of the most powerful debuffs in the game. Now, most of these bosses are immune to poison, or they take so little damage from poison. Whereas HP burn has really come on as a huge asset in a lot of areas of the game. And so that creates this disparity between them where Geomancer is just going to be used more often.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for me to hear because I am going the other way. I have called the Venomage. I don't expect it. But much like the previous matchup with Seer, Venomage is a champion I know very well that I've run on multiple accounts, has always provided crazy good value, and I'm still using at end game. And so I went with the champion that I knew provided value to me. Now let's look forward towards the Epic 8. We've got that top half of Seeker, Doom Priest matchup. We both called Seeker coming out of there. I think Geo is the favorite coming out of here, but that sets up an incredibly interesting matchup in the Epic 8. Seeker at the 13 seed, Geo at the 2 seed, both underrated at the seed that they're at. Who goes through there?
I still have Geomancer coming out. I know Seeker's amazing, and it's cool to see him coming through here, but we know he should be a higher seed anyway. It's more like Seeker's, 2, 3, 4 seed, and going up against Geomancer as a 2 seed. And I still think that Geomancer's going to come out ahead. I had him in the final 4 in my bracket, and I think that's going to come to pass here as well. I think he's going to come out ahead. If Seeker beats Doom Priest, or Doom Priest beats Seeker, I think Geomancer still has the edge on both of those.
All right, so now we get to the last little bit here. We know who your calls are for the Epic 8. We know who you think is going through to the Final 4. Who's your champion, MTG?
I actually think that Geomancer is going to take the whole thing. I think that he is going to surprise people, because once you have some unkillable champions as options, Geomancer comes in as the answer that you need in a lot of areas. Even more so, I think he's the only answer or the best answer, and I think he's so powerful at what he does. he's going to come out ahead and win the whole thing.
All right. Well, there you have it. I'm not sure that my bracket doesn't look like that. My bracket doesn't look like that, but I don't think anybody would be surprised. I think that Geo is going to be the winner in a lot of brackets, and we'll have to see if one of these two great champions in the next 2 rounds can pull an upset, or maybe he'll meet his match in the finals. I don't know. I've got Deacon Armstrong coming out of the other side, so a Deacon Geo matchup would be very interesting as well. But all right, so that is it for the Sacred 16. A lot of great matchups. I'm really excited. I've enjoyed watching this whole thing. I've gotten angry. I've been happy. Like it's like my favorite champions are getting knocked off. It's crazy. So it's a lot of fun. I hope you're enjoying it over on your channel. Is your Discord discussing Raid Madness at all? Have you been having the fun debates, the water cooler debates that go along with March Madness?
I don't think they really have. So let's go, Discord. Let's get this conversation started. I think they've been just hanging out and gravitating towards your Discord to come have those conversations. But I want to get that started. It's been so fun debating these picks. Let's get the conversation started here. And tell me who you think is coming out ahead in these matchups, because I definitely want to hear it.
Absolutely. Me too. By the way, have you started your March Madness bracket over on your channel?
Yeah, so the brackets just came out yesterday, and I set everything up today, so probably I'll have a video on that the same day this is going live, or somewhere in the near future. So you can check my Discord, check my YouTube channel for the details on that. But yes, if it's not out, it should be coming soon.
All right, so if you have caught the madness, the bracket madness from Raid Madness, and you want, go check out MTGJedi's channel. He's doing a March Madness bracket over there. I'm definitely going to join that as well. I'm having a ton of fun here, and I don't want the fun to stop, so we're going to keep it rolling. But so thanks so much to my guest. I will put a link to MTG's YouTube channel in the description of this video. Go hang out over there. It's a lot of fun. All right, that is it for us today. I have been Colred. He has been the Jedi. We are done. We'll see you soon.